So the concept of the job planner was to come up with a better means for managing jobs going outward into the future. Historically in the past, we worked in job queues and job lists. So the screen in front of me would be your typical method of looking at your backlog, your open jobs and scheduling and the like. What we never did provide was a really easy way to look at my manpower requirements as I look at my queue. We would use the open units on the front page and sometimes the open installation to get an idea of what I've got going forward. The job planner concept was put into place to provide a Gantt chart methodology of managing and scheduling out going into the future. So what we did is we came up with a Gantt chart display which allows us to look at our jobs in a time-oriented fashion. The job planner is set up into 3 distinct areas, and the first area I'll talk about is the Gantt chart. And what I'd like to do also is jump back a little bit into the current SedonaOffice application to show you all how this data becomes available within the job planner. We have made some modifications, and a few of these things did trickle out over the last few releases that support the data of the job planner. But now with the job planner release, we'll actually start using some of that data going forward. So on the right-hand side of the panel is the Gantt chart display. And within this selection criteria here, I'm showing a list of my open jobs with a projected start date from June 1st going forward. And if you look inside of each job, you'll see the task list for the job laid out here. So I'm going to jump back out to the main application and talk about some of the concepts and how the data gets fed into the job planning system. So inside of SedonaOffice, I have my job queue, but I also have in my setup, I have my tasks. So I'm going to start from the setup area and talk about how we get data to show up in the job planner. And I'm going to work from the table setup originally. So within job tasks, this is your standard job task list, which has existed since day 1 of the job management system. What you can do initially is you can create a default hours for each task. Now this will then drive itself down to the job type. This is only a default, so it's not going to actually use the hours on the job task list for the planner, but it'll allow you to create better default data going forward. So what you might want to do first of all is go to your task setup and create a default number of hours built for each task. And I'll mention this now, if you can look at some of these tasks that you know are not labor-oriented or installation scheduling oriented and zero out the hours on this. And what this does, by making 0 labor hours for the task, this is telling the system that I'm never going to schedule installation or technicians, installers or technicians for this labor task. And it's a way of managing, thinning down the number of tasks that'll hit your Gantt chart. So managing your tasks is the first step. The second step is the job types themselves. Each job type can then be broken down into its own individual areas of scheduling. So if I look at this job type, for example, which I set up earlier, I went into my task list and I defined my labor hours for each task. And these labor hours are then used as part of the job planner. So I wanted to have a clean list of tasks. So things like scheduling, ordering parts, and then scheduling the installation, and then doing the job costing at the end. I don't want to deal with those tasks within my job planner. I only want to deal with things that truly involve sending installers out to the field. So I went into the job type and I'm estimating that I need 16 hours of pre-wire for this types of jobs, and I need 32 hours of actual installation for this type of jobs. Now you can create as many tasks as you need and break these down as detailed as you'd like, but I'm setting these up as just a general overview type here. So now that I have my job type set up, when I go in to create any new job, it'll automatically default those hours into that particular job type. I did this earlier with this job here, I believe. Yeah, so my task list now shows me the labor hours that came over from the job type. Within each job, I can then create specific labor hours for every task. So I can come in to say for this job, well, I know that I don't need 16 hours of pre-wire. I might only need 8 hours of pre-wire and save that off. However, the installation is a little bigger job than I thought, so this might truly be a 40-hour install and set that up. So now that I've saved this information, this job is now ready in my planner, and it's allocating that much space on my Gantt chart based on the hours set up for this job. So other than this step, I don't really need to do anything else as far as my setups go pertaining to the job planner step. So when I jump out to the job planner now, and I'll do a quick refresh because I had it open. Job 1038 was one of the jobs that I was working in a second ago. The system is now showing 8 hours of pre-wire and 40 hours of install. And you could see on the side of the Gantt chart, it's laying out the time frame of the install. The system is going to be using the projected start date. This was a field we've always tracked, but we're really using it differently now than we did before. So within the job area, I need to make sure that I have a projected start date. The system is going to then calculate the amount of time this job would take based on the hours built into the task list. So without a projected start date, the job won't be recognized in the Gantt chart area. This wasn't a required field in the past, and currently it's still not required from a data tracking standpoint, but if you want to use the Gantt chart scheduling for a job, you should make sure you have projected start dates for the work orders. So let's talk about the functionality of the job planner and the kinds of things that you can do inside of here. As I click along each job, the system will automatically load the task list and the progression of time going forward for each job. So as you can see, as I look at jobs starting on 6/11, I get an idea of the manpower requirements going forward by task. You can see my pre-wire pushes me out to this date, and my installation pushes me out to the week of the 21st on Thursday on this job, and so on. As you start piling up more and more jobs in your backlog, you can start laying out manpower and time frame going forward. Up at the top, we have the ability to zoom in and out and spread this out over more precise time. The left and right arrows allow me to jump between jobs and highlight the jobs that I'm looking at. I can use the zoom in and out function to expand the calendar at the top. Am I looking at a week, 2 weeks, a month, and so on in the scale? Collapsing all allows me to look at all of the jobs in one list. And that can help as my list gets larger to jump around. Filtering. If you want to create a more precise list of jobs on the Gantt chart, you can multi-select any number of these various drop-downs and create smaller and smaller subsets of your backlog for scheduling. And then there's the refresh button. And one of the nice things that we did in here is the manpower summary. What this does is this looks at all of your tasks, all of your jobs and all of your tasks in a summary fashion and says, well, what do I project out based on what I'm looking at? What are my requirements? I have 165 days of installation in my backlog. I have 2.5 days of job costs and so on. My data here isn't exactly beneficial, but you get the idea when you see the information that we can now provide to you in knowing your manpower needs for your current backlog at any point in time. So in using this function, you can look at this being done either by a one-man shop or maybe multi-man shop. So if I'm a project manager, but I'm not the guy who's actually scheduling, what I might be able to do is come in here and say, well, I'm managing this job and I need people. So I can come in here and I can what we call request. Right click on it and request for task. And this is one of the steps in the scheduling process. And just to show you how this works, what I did is I just requested this task. And what it did is it placed this task into my current session. It hasn't done anything other than allow almost like a scratch pad mentality where I can start placing things over on my request list of things I want to schedule for. And I could go from job to job that I'm the project manager for and start choosing the tasks I want to schedule. And I can schedule so on. I can request for pre-wire. So hypothetically, these are the jobs that I'm managing. These are the tasks that I need people for. And once I confirm everything and here's what I'm requesting, I can hit this checkbox and it saves the information. So now what the system has done is it's put everything into a request tree. And these are things that are flagged as saying, hey, these have been placed into my scheduling area. Down below, I can see a list of my installers and their availability. This is looking at things from a morning and afternoon. So here's Sunday morning, afternoon, Monday morning, afternoon. So I get a feel for the availability of the technicians that I may want to schedule for this job. So looking up top, what I can do is I can say, well, I want to schedule the install, which is probably not a great definition, but let's say this is a true installation task due for a job. I can drag this down to an installer and drop it on any given day. Let me get this down here.
You want to drag the request, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Rod. I'm trying. Okay, it dropped that down to that Tuesday morning for the schedule. And what this also will do is this will feed directly onto the appointment summary for the current job system. So if you're using the appointment summary and looking at installers, you can see that this appointment dropped down on this board also. The system is laid out really well to work in a dual monitor mode, and because of the webinar, I can only show one monitor at a time. So I'm doing it all kind of in one display. But if you think of the screen that I'm looking at right now being on one monitor and the job planner being on a second monitor, I can easily drag this information from one monitor across to another monitor and drop it on the board itself and schedule, or I can drop, and as I did a bit ago, and drop down here on the technician's small grid down here. So I think I can schedule all at once, right? Get rid of all these guys. And one of the options also in here is schedule by drop date. And what this does is this takes off a restriction that I can only schedule on the date the task was set up for. So if I look at, for instance, this task here, and it's requested for July 8th at 2 o'clock. Okay, so right now, no matter where I drop this down, it's going to place the appointment on 7/8 at 2 o'clock. If I dropped it, if I moved forward, to July 18th, it'll still move that appointment back to the request date. If I schedule by drop date, it'll allow me to place this appointment anywhere on the board I want. And let's go ahead and do that. So I just did that. I dropped that down on Tuesday afternoon, or Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And I'll do my last same way.
Remember about that locking too, the lock checkbox and the installer availability there. So that's if you wanted to do that thing where you were in the 18th and you wanted to schedule it on the 18th, you would lock it so that when you clicked on the task, it didn't move the installer availability calendar back again. That way it would stick where it was.
Yeah, what Roger's talking about is the grid is dynamic and it will kind of move around as you're choosing different tasks. So for example, this is 626 here. So when I clicked on 626, it automatically moved the calendar back to show what was going on during that time frame. But if I want to truly look at scheduling out into the future, I can pick, say, July 12th to the 18th, and by checking the lock check here, it's not going to automatically move the week of the selected task on the schedule. And so this way allows you to look at your future availability, and regardless of when the start date may appear on the task list on the grid, it will allow me to take a 6:30 schedule date and drop it onto anything on the left-hand side. The minute I unlock this and I check on something, it immediately moves that back to the date of the week of what's on the schedule. So it's really just a question of how much dynamic flexibility you want to build into the scheduling. If you're using the job planner for your scheduling piece, I would think once you have your task list in place and you've built out your job, looking at the hours and the requirements going forward, you would kind of have it predefined, and you wouldn't have to move around the lock, thing all that much. One of the other concepts is the idea of predecessors and requirements. So anybody who's used Gantt charts in the past wouldn't be familiar with the idea of a predecessor, where something is always dependent on the thing before it. So I can look at my job types, and I can define which is a predecessor of which. So I can say install has to follow this piece and has to follow this piece. Now this is important in the fact that as I work in my grid, and here's an example of a predecessor here with the arrows. If I start sliding around the top piece, the bottom piece would go along with it. Now, the colors that I'm looking at here tells me that this piece is already scheduled, so I can't modify that one. But if I look over here, this one in blue will allow me to slide. And if you notice, it'll never let me put the green task before the blue task. Now, the green doesn't mean it's a predecessor. The green means that this task is a billable task of the job. So we did that to give you an idea of scheduling jobs or scheduling tasks of jobs that are at a point of billing once that task is completed and signed off. So that in talking about the colors of the grid, these task bars will change colors based on status of that particular task. Once a task has been scheduled to a technician, it will turn yellow. If I come in here and I want to request a task, you'll see that it turned like a shade of a purplish pink and so on. If I commit this to the request tree, it changes into a red. Something that's blue, we would consider a normal task. Nothing special about it. It hasn't been scheduled. It's still open, and so on. A green task is billable. And the only other thing that we might want to look at is let's come in here. Currently, I have this checkbox saying to exclude my non-labor tasks. And if you remember when I set the labor hours to 0, what this does, this is a mechanism that filters out those tasks. If I were to uncheck this, the system will automatically bring in the other tasks here. So it's a non-labor task. Personally, I don't know why you'd ever want to show tasks like that on this thing, other than maybe see what else is required for a particular job outside of scheduling. I would think within the job planner piece, we're here because we're talking about labor and we're talking about scheduling and time, and to include administrative type things that don't involve the installation scheduling. To me, that just creates more clutter on it. So I would think you would probably check this in all cases. We also have the ability to turn on the phase codes. And what this will do is this will change the display up top, and you'll see this when I uncheck this. Now my phases of the job acts as a new tree grouping of the task codes. And I only have one job here that it looks like I have multiple phases for, which is right here. And you can see how the Gantt chart looks a little bit different for jobs that have multiple phases. It creates this black bar grouping underneath each of the tasks that make up that particular phase. Okay, so some more of the things that are going on in here. I can look at a technician. Let me jump out to someone who's got jobs and install. There's this little enlarge button here. This is kind of a neat little information thing. I can view on a technician. It'll open up by technician some of their common task appointments, pre-wires, how many jobs they've had with these types of systems. And then 24, I believe, is the estimated hours that they're scheduled for on this current view. Am I correct, Roger? Is that what that does?
Yeah, for the week that you're on, it's counting up the hours in that week. That's what you see, those colored blocks down there, right?
So that's a way to check if an installer normally would have 40 hours available to him to schedule, or if you want to factor in less than that for lunch and so on. This will kind of give you an idea of are they full, or are they using all their time for installation for that particular week. Okay, okay. This was kind of an interesting thing. The job here required multi-day, multi-hour. So the system will automatically build multiple appointments for you on the fly. So because the task that I scheduled for had multiple, I think, what was it, 16 hours? It must have been 16 hours or 20 hours. And it then built a morning and an afternoon going forward for each of the days. So if I jump out to the regular schedule board from Sedona Schedule and look at, that's on June 7th. June 7th. 8th, 9th. You can see right here. Yeah, it was a back scheduled job that I did. So what it did is it built multiple day appointments automatically when I set that task for Mac Knife. And so now on the 8th, let's see, it went 9, 10, 11 on half, and just a few hours on 11. So it'll take the number of hours from the task code and automatically create as many days as it needs to make up for the hours for that appointment. So you don't need to worry about creating multiple appointments. Go ahead, Roger.
What I was going to say is one thing that you didn't mention when you were talking about Sedona Setup, when you set up the tasks and the job types and all that kind of stuff, is it also goes by install company. So a job, if you have multiple install companies, now in Sedona Setup, you can set up your install companies so that they start at a certain time of day and finish at a certain time of day, and also whether or not they work on Saturdays and Sundays. You check those boxes, you set the start hour and the end hour, and when you save that, when the job planner finds a job that's run by that install company, that's the hours it uses to determine where to plop those tasks on the board.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because what it'll also do is if I have an installation that I know is a 40-hour install, the system will automatically know to skip over Saturday and Sunday if these boxes are not checked as work days. So, and then the schedule and I believe the Gantt chart, Raj, also will then manage those days out if that's a work day or not for that particular installation company.
That's right, and one thing that you didn't show is before you make requests on a task, you can slide those wherever you want along the Gantt chart in time. And what it will do is it will adjust the task lengths and according to those install company setup options. So as you drag, maybe Don, can you find a longer task that you have like later? I'm not sure. Like you have a 24-hour one at that bottom job, 1036. You got that 24-hour pre-wire, I think. It's the second to last job on the thing. Once you slide that green task, and you can see how the Gantt chart the Gantt task will automatically be stretched or compressed according to those work days. So if you drag it on a Sunday, it automatically expands to if they don't work on a Sunday, obviously it will expand to another day.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, so it'll lengthen this chart based on, it knows that it has to extend beyond Sunday, and it may appear as a 5-day job, but if you're not working Sunday, it'll just lengthen the task to show that, the completion date going out farther. Okay. I think that's a pretty good overview to this point. The from date will allow you to bring your backlog down to a smaller list. So if you've got jobs that go back months and months and months, you may want to, and you want to bring those into the planner, you may want to, roll this back quite a few days back. If you've got large, long jobs, you might want to have your from date, go back to that date. But that all gets into the filtering. So certain jobs that may take longer, you can break that down by your job type and then move your from dates back. If you're doing quick residential jobs, you might want to modify your job type to those and then move your from date forward. So it's a little bit of an art to learning the filtering and the from date, how they can work hand in hand to load your Gantt chart data. It's pulling in a lot of information, so you're probably going to want to think of ways you can limit the amount of data that's coming in per view. If you're trying to load your entire backlog, regardless of what kind of jobs they are, you may find it being a little bit slower than you'd like it to be. So as always, less data to manage is going to speed the performance up quite a bit. The installer groups found on the left-hand side, I didn't mention this. This matches your display groups from your service schedule board. So this will bring the installers in based on the display group on the service board within the same data sets exactly.
And it will only bring in those installers that have the installer in your employee table. So have that checkbox checked. So if they're a technician but not an installer, it's just going to ignore that person. It's not going to put them into the installer availability chart.
Mm-hmm. I was going to go over to
the employees. You had it. It's in the middle. Oh.
Yeah. So
I thought it was employees. I see.
I think it overlaps. There's a few
spots.
So. Did you think of anything we missed, Raj? I think we kind of covered the overview.
You covered most everything except for if you scroll up, your computer.
There we go.
Yeah. Go to the options menu. Don't forget about that plan concurrently, plan sequentially deal. So one thing that you can do, I thought I'd mention really quick, is that when you say plan concurrently, it just tries to put all the tasks down in a row, like at the start date. And if you have predecessors on, it will shift them due to the predecessors. But this is when you kind of know that I'm going to have to shift these tasks around, and I just want them in a convenient spot. And that's what that plan concurrently will do. Whereas the sequential tries to line them up back to back to back, as if you were going to schedule one individual for each task. It's kind of like it's not trying to do all the scheduling for you, but rather it's trying to just put them in a convenient place so that you can work your magic on the schedule yourself.
Yeah, the sequentially, I believe we'll take, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll take the number of hours and always have the next task start at the completion of the previous task, right, based on the hours. And
that's correct.
Forward. Or the concurrently will stack them up like I just did here and allow me to then decide, which order and which things I do. Now the predecessor rule will still jump in play like it did here. It's not going to let me move, not switch the order of these two items because one is dependent on the other. So you'll get a message here, predecessor violation, that you can't do something before the other one is done.
Yeah, but other than that, I think you covered most of it.
Really good. There is this area in here also. We did create some shortcuts into the setup area. So there's some things you can do inside of the job planner itself without having to jump out into the Sedona setup to modify. So a bit ago I showed you how you can go into the task area and define your default lengths in Sedona setup. Well, you can also do it right within the planner itself. So the tasks exist here. I could then go through my job types pick my job types, and you can see the sequence and the length of the hours here. I can edit these, and truth be told, this is probably a little bit quicker than navigating Sedona Setup and then having to pick the type, go to the tabs, and then modify there. You could just step through your job types directly in here, you know, and place your hours and so on that you know would fit in here, and then save that. And I think we go right down to the job. We do. So I could also, within here, without having to open up the job in job management and going down to the tasks and doing all the save, this is a nice shortcut also. So for this particular job, let me go back to the one we were working with. Here's the one we were working with. I could simply come in here and say, I actually realize this is 44 hours, you know, here, save that. So now that task is 44 hours. So I have some power inside of Job Planner itself to modify the time requirements for the task without having to take the long step back out to the main application to edit those. And the general settings, I think we covered everything. Were there any questions that popped through during the?
You know, my chat is us. I don't see the chat for the attendees. I don't know what I did wrong, but I clicked on something wrong, I guess.
Okay, I get some questions here. Let me roll back through these. Oh, I got a lot of them here.
Oh, what? I missed it. I don't know how I did that. You're an old hand at this webinar stuff, though. I'm a novice, so I don't know.
I'm just old. Okay. If we import jobs from WeSuite, will the estimates be automatic? They will be based on the job type. So if WeSuite's job type matches up job types you defined on our side, yes, those will automatically load in the labor hours on those. One question is, each part has a labor unit associated with it. Does this impact or affect the labor units? They're exclusive of each other. The labor units on the parts have nothing to do with the labor time on the tasks themselves. We treat them as two independent sets of data. Does this include service techs? Only if they're installers also. Somebody asked a question whether or not this Gantt chart includes service tickets. It does not. This is strictly a job management, job installation function. And then somebody asks if you could drag over multiple tasks at once, example of the whole job. Raj, I'm pretty sure that from the request tree, I can schedule an entire job in one pass if I've requested those, right? If they're in the tree, you can drag the whole job down, correct?
That is going to be, that, once upon a time that worked, that needs to be fixed. So that will be like the first update of this.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't work right now because we just changed it from half-day increments on your job tasks to 1 hour increments on the job tasks, and that ruined a few things.
Okay, so that will be coming up.
But you can't single select jobs on, say, the Gantt chart, tasks on the Gantt chart using control or something, and then drag them over because it would, I guess we could implement something like that, but that would be for a later update of it.
Somebody asked a question. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Somebody asked a question about travel time and how does travel time fit in, or do we have to make a task based on where that is? Yeah, we don't imply any travel time in front of any of these tasks. If travel time is noteworthy enough that you want to account for that time, you would need to build a task prior, in front of the task that you're scheduling for, to build that one in there also, or add the hours. I can think what I might want to do is maybe come into the job area and maybe add a half hour, to the time if travel is part of the equation here. Somebody asked the question if the installer availability graph on the lower left is integrated with miscellaneous appointments. Raj, I believe that's in here, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you went to the schedule board and put in a vacation day for one of those guys, you'll see it shows up. The block gets like a tan color to it.
Right.
That orange color that you see means he has multiple appointments for that time block. If it's just a single appointment for a time block, it either shows the little hammer for a job appointment or a little wrench for a service appointment. If he had a miscellaneous appointment and a job or service appointment, then you're going to see that orange color again. It basically works with if there's multiple, you see that orange color, and if there's just one, you see either the hammer, the wrench, or a tan color, meaning miscellaneous.
Mm-hmm. Right. So vacations and sick time and so on would appear in this grid like as a tan color.
Yeah, you could actually skip over there really quick and add a miscellaneous appointment if you wanted to, and then just push the reload button, and it would you would be able to see it. Go back to the day, and then just click your yep. You're not gonna don't get out of that one, and then go make it afternoon, like make it 1 o'clock or something like that. Yeah, that way you'll see the tan rather than the orange.
Okay. So let's say he's sick, and from rest of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's there.
Now just hit reload. It should work if you just move the tan color there.
Yeah, the tan color here is, and if I hover the mouse over, it'll show me the information that he was sick and he was off at 1.
And if you hover over the orange, you'll see the multiple appointments that he has. So it will give you all that information.
Oh, so the 2 jobs here. Okay, I gotcha. And then if I hover over the ticket, oh, these are jobs.
Yeah, you have like all jobs. You don't have any.
Well, here's a good example here. This guy's got a job and then 2 service tickets stacked up behind it. Okay, good. All right, a few more questions here. We'll roll through. When a job is built out and the install is estimated at 20 hours, say the job is going to take longer and we update the task, is this something that will update the job cost? No. This is a scheduling tool, so it's not going to modify the job estimate and the job time.
If you added job tasks to a job and then you came back into the job planner, it would add those tasks. It just doesn't have anything, like Don said, it doesn't have anything to do with the billing or anything like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Here we go. Someone wants to print the export chart. I don't think this is printable, is it? Can this be dumped out?
Guess what? This is a third-party control, this Gantt chart, that I've had to jimmy around a little bit to make it do what we wanted it to do. At the time that I started this project, they actually they were boasting of a print feature, and everything I read about the print feature says it doesn't work yet, including from the company that makes the third-party control. So that will be a future update. Supposedly it's close to being fixed, but this version does not have it.
Okay. Can a task be dragged or dropped and assigned to multiple installers?
No.
Not currently, right? You'd have to have you could make a shadow, right, of the same
Yeah,
task?
that's right. And what you can do, yep, you got it. You right-click it. So when you right-click a task, make it one of the blue ones. Or you could make it a red one. Okay, now say request for task. And now go ahead and checkbox that. go ahead and submit that task. Okay, so now right-click that again, and I'll say request for task. So now we have that shadow copy that Don was talking about. And now we can drag that around if we wanted to, and we can. It's just a copy of the original task. So if we wanted to make, schedule 2 guys for the same task, that's the way you could go about doing it. Yeah, and if it's going to take them half the amount of time for the task because they're 2 guys working on it, then you would have to adjust the time of it because there's no guessing, on that sort of thing. So that's why it doesn't automatically let you say split this task into 2 guys or whatever.
Right. Right. Okay, let me go back to the questions. So if
I'm sorry.
I have a question here. So if you make a change in the shortcut to the task setup that changes, adjusts, updates for all future tasks of that type or just that one.
I don't think I follow that one.
Talk to the task setup. I'm thinking what they're saying is if I modify this, in the setup, we can define the number of hours and so on. Does it modify things going forward? It does not. It's only a default to create more job types, and then the job types create more jobs. So the only thing that drives the Gantt displays and the information there is what's on the job itself.
And you would have to go into that job itself and change the hours for that. It's not retroactive. It doesn't update all of your data according to the latest change. It's just for new jobs. This is what it's going to use.
If you change the hours on a job in the planner, does it adjust the estimates on the job? It does not. It does not. Like I said, this is strictly scheduling, not job costing. Did you guys make any changes to the job ticket? I'm assuming that means the printout. Nothing on here affects the printout. Okay, under what heading is the job planner located? I did kind of jump out. Currently, the way to get to the job planner is within
Open
the
job. You're in the right spot. Yep.
Yeah. So what we did is we created. Oh, my screen is small here. Let me move this over. There's a little button over here on the right that opens up the job planner. So from the job queue instead of the service area. Now we are modifying some things that are not released yet, but you can still get to the job planner through here. We're going to create some menus inside of job management itself that will open the job planner up for you. Any plans to have the tech be able to report tasks done using the FSU? We do that now. We do that now through the FSU when you dispatch, arrive, depart, and dispatch on the schedule. When will the planner be out for us to begin using? It's actually going to be out. We currently are cutting a version 5.7.13. That was actually cut today and put into our development testing area. We're expecting it to be out tomorrow or Thursday generally to everybody. We have a great document that Carolyn put together that will provide as part of that release that you'll be able to click on and download. It probably explains everything better than I did in this entire webinar. It's pretty thorough, and you can use that to kind of walk through most of the things that I've talked about today. Can you see multiple jobs in the Gantt chart? Yes. Yes, that's what we're looking at here. And it'll always display what fits the calendar, right? So if I'm on the June 7th week, it's going to show me anything that's underneath that time frame. And I can shrink this down using the zoom in and zoom out features of that.
Right.
Let me slide up so I can see this. So I can get smaller and smaller and smaller and see how far out my
and that doesn't really aid you in planning individual tasks. That's more like a let me see what things look like from 50,000 feet. And then when you want to you want a fine-grained view of it, you would zoom in so that you you can schedule stuff this afternoon, that afternoon, rather than you don't really want to be dragging tasks around when you've got 7 months on the Gantt chart showing.
Somebody asked the question again, what if you have a task that requires 2 men? I think the best way is to use the shadow, which we showed a second ago, where you can right-click any task that's already scheduled or requested in red and make a copy of the same task. So you would create multiple tasks for each task to then drag that one down to.
And don't forget, you could also have the task be just do the one task and then copy and paste it from the schedule board. Remember, like Don was telling you, you're going to have the best way to use this is 2 monitors, the Gantt chart on one monitor and your schedule board on the other, and then you just schedule it and then go to the schedule and copy paste, and that's real fast. You don't have a lot of fuss that way.
Yeah, like I just did right there. I just copied and pasted that appointment. You can right-click and copy any appointment and click that same, and then right-click and paste it on any other installer right from here also. It's another way to do it. That's a good point. So somebody asked again, did you make any changes to the job ticket printout? No, we have not as part of this. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of questions here. We have about 5 minutes.
I'm sorry I got that wrong. I have no idea what I did wrong. Where I have one comment that I typed out, and I can't see anything else.
I think what we'll do, and there's probably another 75 questions on here. I think what we'll do is we'll print this off, and we'll try to go through and type in answers for all the questions on here, and we'll publish this webinar like we always do, and go from there. Going back to the overview, anything else, Raj? I don't think we missed anything. Anything come to mind as we wrap up here?
I don't think you missed anything either.
Okay. Well, like I said, this is be available to you end of this week with the release that we're putting together tomorrow. There's some great release notes that will be available. You can click on when the notice goes out to download, and you can read. We could probably shoot off those notes to you ahead of time if you want. I'll talk to Rebecca about getting these on the website for you to download today or tomorrow, so you could have those even pre-release if you wanted to thumb through those and go through it. And I think I'll cut it off here, and we'll get the notes from the meeting out to everybody. So I just want to thank everybody for participating, and if we missed anything or any other questions, you can go ahead and email me directly. All right, thank you.